Okay, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes,
Morning, Trudy. Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you very much. Welcome to the second session that we will have on environmental water management. I see there's still some people joining, and I am waiting on some of my colleagues to still join that also has to take over. So we'll give it like 5 minutes, then we will continue if that's okay with you.
Yes, Trudy. That's okay with us. But also, can I please just ask? I'm having trouble with enrolling, so I do not have access to the course material. So I don't know if I'm the only one, or maybe if you mentioned this yesterday, but I was having a bit of internet connection problems. So, and I tried to send an email to Kujinga, but I haven't had a response yet. So can you please assist me? How can I get access to the material?
Padana, I will follow up with Dr. Kujinga because you have registered, so you should get access to the course. And it's important because we will actually go to the course this morning and just follow. I just want everybody to complete a quiz with just 5 questions that's already on the platform.
Okay.
Yes, so you will, even if you don't do it today, as soon as you get access, you must just complete that quiz. I will direct where exactly it is located.
Okay, no problem then. Thank you.
But you should get access, definitely.
Okay, yeah, I'm hoping for that.
That shouldn't be a problem. It should be able to be fixed. Is there any other student that has the same problem as Badana, that you don't have access to the course yet?
Hello, I also have the same problem of accessing my account.
Okay. I'm just going
And
to
I
make
can't access my content. Yes,
Stephanie, where are you from?
I'm from Kenya. And I have the same issue of trying to log in to the WaterNet account.
Okay, we'll get that sorted. I will speak to Dr. Kuchinga.
Thank you.
Badana, you are from South Africa, is that correct?
Yes, Trudy, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
There's just a student with me in front of my door. I'll just mute myself quickly and I'll be back.
No problem.
Okay, I'm back. Yes, so this morning, I see there's a chat. I'm just checking what in the chat. Good morning, Stephanie. To access yesterday recordings, is anyone access? I can't hear nothing. Oh, Kalisto, can you hear us now? Yes, good morning, students. Welcome to another day on environmental water management. I still see some students are joining us. In terms of the recording of yesterday's session, I have arranged this with Dr. Kujinga. They're going to create a YouTube video or access. So you will not be able to see it yet. They are in the process of doing that to actually convert the recording to a YouTube something. And I will let you know because I asked they should inform me also when it's accessible. So as soon as it is accessible, I will, I don't remember now, can we actually send messages on the platform? I don't remember, but I have at least James' email. And I will send in an email to one of you to send to the rest of the attendants, or I will ask Dr. Kujinga somehow to inform all of you when the recording is available. Just a minute. This is I'm sorry about that. Yes, so I also welcome Dr. Joshua that will take over from me as soon as we finish. They've already shared the link to YouTube on your emails. So there's the link. Thank you very much, Escola, for sharing that with us. So there's the link already. The link was sent to your inboxes or your emails. And the link is now also on the chat if you need that. To get the link to the recordings of yesterday. Did you follow that, students?
Yes, we have it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Francisco. Then this morning, if we just reflect on yesterday, we have gone through two discussion sessions of two examples, looking at whether an EIA, a full EIA is really required. We looked at some positive and negative impacts for both a new dam development as well as new motorway or highway. And we had some discussions regarding mitigation. We even looked finally at whether, when do we consider an EIA has been successful in its purpose or why it was created, and we discussed all that, and it's all linked to the presentations and the notes that is loaded onto the platform. So there's a presentation on what is an EIA, giving some definitions, etc. Then there's a presentation on the legislative framework and what's associated with that. And then there's a presentation on the steps of an EIA, the different steps. And then there's also something on public participation or the social side of an EIA. And that's basically what I have covered. And then there's another session which will be taken over by Dr. Joshua soon. And that's discussing some case studies. So that's what you will do after I finish this morning. What I just want us to do this morning, if you go onto the platform, which I would like you to do as soon as possible, hopefully now, if it's possible for you to get onto the platform, or you can do it during the day. And if you go to the part, not the introductory part where we saw the videos, the part that actually indicates the details about EIA, about SEA, and about the environmental flows on the platform. So if you then get onto the EIA part, the first one is the presentation. And if you scroll a little bit down, you will see 5 quiz questions. And it's multiple choice. So the correct answer or answers is one of the ticks that you have to put on there. So I would like you to complete those 5 questions for me, please. And still, we'll give you time until, I think, tomorrow night, 12 o'clock, to finish that if you cannot do it today. But it's important that you please complete the quiz. So if you go there, I'm just going to get to that quickly to see if there's any trouble getting there, making sure that you will have no trouble seeing that. So if you click on environmental impact assessment, you go to the part that says, what are the steps in an EIA? You click on that in the course. Then the first part will show you the presentation that was loaded. And then if you scroll a little bit down, you will see multiple choice EIA quiz. And then the first question is, what is the purpose of the screening step of an EIA? And then there's 3 options. The second one is true or false. Typically, the project proponents carry out the screening process by assessing the project based upon a set of criteria determined by a designated agency. And then you have to select, obviously, as it says, either select one or select as many that apply. The third question is, which one of the steps below is not included in the scoping process? And then the fourth question is again a true or false. Public consultation is a critical part of the EIA, and in some SADC countries, it is mandatory by legislation. Is this true or not? Please, and then the fifth one is, please select the one item from the list below that is not an example of an approach to impact assessment. And that's our 5 questions. And when you've selected your option that you consider is correct, you just press the submit button at the bottom of the quiz, and that's it. And then you do the next question, and when you finish the 5, it's really easy. That's then the end of my part in terms of the course, the EIA part, and Dr. Joshua will take over with the case study discussion just now. Is there any questions from your side? Then please ask now before I will say goodbye.
Yes, Trudy, I've seen the first presentation on what is EIA, but I couldn't access the rest of the presentation. The legal framework, the steps of an EIA, the social side of the EIA.
Okay,
I couldn't make this presentations.
Okay, Francisco, could you see the presentation when you click on the because there's the different parts. There's what is an EIA. If you click on the EIA part on the platform, then it will give you different sections. One is what is an EIA. The second one is the framework, the legislative framework. The third one is the steps. So when you click on the others, could you see the presentation there loaded or not?
No, I only saw on the first one what is an EIA. I could see this presentation. The rest I couldn't access. Don't know. I don't know if other colleagues have accessed these presentations or not.
Okay, can we have some other students to respond also? Could you access the presentations or not?
Morning.
Morning.
You know, see, I also can't access the presentations. I managed to access the first one on there.
Really? Who was speaking now?
Kinosi.
Can you see? Is there somebody else? Is there anybody that could?
This is Charles. I managed to access the lessons, the videos, including everything.
Okay, great, Charles. Then maybe there's just something else, but I'm noting it's Francisco, Simoni, and Ginosi was the second person. Is there anybody
I
else?
also, yeah,
James.
it's
Okay.
not opening. The link is not opening, so maybe it's something to do with my network. I'll keep trying, but I don't know if there is a quicker way. How could I be? How I could be assisted to access them?
Okay, I will make sure that that it is available to all the students, and if you do not get access, it can also be emailed to you in a PDF format. So you can send me an email. I will type my email just now into the chat. And you can send me an email and I will email a PDF format of the presentations to you. What's important though is that you complete the quiz. That's very important for today's session. So if you couldn't see or open the presentation, just scroll down and you'll see the quiz questions under the steps in an EIA. Please answer those 5 questions for me. And with that, I think I can wrap up now. And I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. I really enjoyed yesterday. I think it was very interesting to have the different perspectives from the different countries. And I would like to thank you for participating in yesterday's session. And then today, yeah, please take the time until tomorrow night, 12 o'clock, you will have time. So tomorrow is the 18th. So 12 o'clock at night, you have time to finish the quiz, the 5 quiz questions under steps of an EIA on the platform. And with that, I would like to welcome now Dr. Joshua that will go with you further and actually discuss some case studies. Dr. Joshua.
Thanks a lot, Trudy. Good morning, class. I'm Miriam Joshua. I hope you've enjoyed the content shared by Trudy on EIA. I just want to share a few case studies on EIA from my own perspectives, but I know that there are so many case studies which you can use to apply the knowledge and skills which you have received by attending this class. So just an overview, I know that Trudy has already taken you through what EIA is all about, why we need to conduct EIA, its history, how it started, and the trend since it started and how it has spread spatially. The steps which you have to follow when you are doing EIA from the beginning up to the end, and why that is very necessary. And briefly, the difference between EIA and strategic environmental assessment, which Dr. Matunga is going to take you through tomorrow. Yeah, so as you have already been told, or you already knew, EIA is there to help in decision making. When you have a project, one wants to implement a project and want to put environmental issues into consideration. And just to put this into perspective, initially, when people were talking about EIA, the focus was just on biophysical environment, but nowadays it goes beyond considering the biophysical environment. You look at social issues, economic issues. So you look at what impacts are associated with this proposed project on the environment in the context of biophysical impacts, economic impacts, social. This could be on how the people are living in an area, their health issues, all those aspects are part of the social aspects. So you look at both the negative and positive impacts on the environment. So once the, when we look at the steps, once the project proponent has submitted a proposed project to the office that is responsible on overseeing that EIA is being done according to registration, all the necessary steps have to be followed. And one thing I wanted to highlight is that the nature of EIA or level of EIA varies according to country. It depends on what is included in the registry. Of course, we have some things which are standard, but some things may specifically apply to a given country and organization. For example, this World Lending, financial institutions, according to what they are looking for in an EIA. So whatever is going to happen in terms of how the EIA has to be implemented depends on where this EIA is taking place, which country, and also which organization is asking for this EIA. So just a recap, we start with screening to determine whether a project needs a list of impacts which are associated with a project, and then you prioritize which ones need to be studied in detail. And this is the level where you also need to consult the public. They have to know what the project is all about, and they need to give input to how they feel about the project and what has to be done. After scoping, then the team, in most cases, it's multidisciplinary team that goes out to conduct the EIA depending on the nature of the project. The nature of the project will determine which specialties will be needed for the team which has to carry out an EIA. So once this team has the terms of reference, they go out to do the EIA, they identify the impacts, they see the level of significance of these impacts to determine and include everything in the EIA report, which is further later on submitted for review, where the public, where consulted, have to check if what was aired area on has been integrated, and also the responsible office also has to review it to see if it really satisfies, and if, for example, if the mitigation measures which have been in place are really appropriate for the impacts which have been identified, and if the environmental management plan which has been outlined is presented in the right way, like which impact and how it's going to be managed, when, by who, etc. And later, the office now has to determine whether, depending on how what issues come out in the report, whether the project has to be implemented or not, or have to be amended to make sure that it doesn't cause much harm to the environment. So if it has been approved, then the project can take place. And once this is happening, monitoring has to take place to make sure that what has been promised in the EIA report in terms of mitigation or environmental management plan is really happening according to what has been stipulated in the report. Okay, so based on this, I'll give you a few case studies where EIA took place for certain projects and what it transpired. First of all, I'll give you one example from my own town where I'm living. When I was a student, around 1994, when I was starting my first year, there was a problem, water shortage in my town. Hence, government had to come up with a plan on how to address access to potable water in this city. So they decided to construct a dam. They had 3 sites which were proposed on the mountain. This is Zomba town in Malawi. So they had a main project site, which they thought that this is the right place. And they also had alternative sites, okay? So the EIA, when they're conducting the EIA, remember I've said that this dam was to be located in Zomba Mountain. So Zomba Mountain is also a forest reserve, okay? So it meant that a number of environmental issues had to be considered. And being on a mountain, it means that there are rocks. So we also involved, you needed geologists there. Some money had to be done in terms of excavation, blasting of rocks, whatever. So you needed economists to estimate the cost for doing that. And being a forest reserve, the number of ecosystem services which come from this forest reserve. So you need the biologists of different specialities to participate in the EIA process, okay? We also have a communities close to the mountain. So you also needed to consider the social impacts of this project. So you need social scientists to be there. So this EIA involved a lot of people, okay? And they came up, they had to assess all the alternative sites, including the main location which was indicated. So they had to identify the negative as well as positive impacts of locating a project at the main site or locating the project at those 2 other alternative sites, okay? So after weighing looking at the significance of the impacts, they had to settle for one location, okay? The first proposed site had to be left, okay? And I remember when I was a student, when I was studying EIA, my lecturer said, one of the reasons why they had to stop or not to recommend the first area where the project had to take place was that there were certain rare species of butterflies. So they noted that if they're going to construct a dam there, yes, they're going to address the water shortages in Zomba, but that rare species is going to become extinct. Okay, so because of that, they said no, this area it's not a good one to, in terms of biological biodiversity, we need to not to locate this dam there. Okay, so some people are making fun of it, that why just butterflies? Okay, why they didn't recognize the importance of butterflies in providing other ecosystem services. But for a biologist with his specialties, they said, no, we have to conserve this butterfly. Okay, so you can see that by involving the experts on different specialties, okay, they had to change the original site of the dam and consider the alternative. Okay, so now the dam is there. It was constructed on one of the alternative sites based on the EIA findings. Without that EIA, that means they were supposed to construct on the original proposed site, and that rare species of butterflies was not going to be there. Okay, so this is one of the first case studies which I wanted to share with you. The other case study which I wanted to share with you is about a filling station which was constructed in another city. Before it was constructed, an EIA was conducted. Okay, this happened about 15 years ago. So the EIA team suggested that the original proposed site was not the right one because that site, there was a main water pipe, okay, supplying water to Blantyre City. So the team say that if they're going to construct the filling station very close to that pipe, it can lead to water pollution. Okay, so they said no, we should not recommend. We are not recommending this proposed filling station to be located where they are proposing it to be. We need to move it upwards. Okay, so why am I bringing out this case study is that one important thing you have to always remember also for effectiveness of EIA also depends on political will. Okay, so during that time, despite the EIA team discouraging the or recommending that the filling station should not be constructed where it was supposed to be, okay, there was some political influence which was involved, and then they disregarded the recommendations in the EIA report. The technical people could not implement what was recommended by the EIA team, and the filling station was constructed where they wanted it to be in the original place, thus posing some threat to the residents, because it meant that this filling station was likely to contaminate the water, drinking water passing through that filling station. Okay, so when political regime changed, okay, some years later, about 4 or 5 years later, this technical arm of the government remembered that there was this problem. Okay, so this time around, the political will or the politics had changed, and they were in support of environmental issues. So they had to go back to the owners of this filling station, and they told them that you remember this EIA report, the recommendations. Okay, so now we are going to demolish this. Okay, so they had to be given an alternative. They said you have to move this filling station to an alternative site, otherwise we are going to demolish it. Okay, so because there was political will, the change in governments helped, and the owners of the filling station had to change, had to demolish the filling station from the original site and moved to the alternative site, which the EIA report had recommended. Okay, so these are just two of the case studies which I wanted to share with you, but there are so many. I know even in your countries, there are so many examples which you can share in terms of how EIA as an exercise helps in decisions to protect the environment. And remember, when we are protecting the environment, it's not just the physical environment, even the people, the socioeconomics, they are also involved there. Okay, so to some extent, things work according to what legislation prescribed, but sometimes things may not work. Okay, and remember, sometimes this can also be influenced by political will. Okay, so basically, this is what I wanted to share with you. I don't know if there are comments or questions to what I've just shared with you.
Morning, Miriam. My name is Ntangane Zeni from South Africa. Yeah, I just have a question. With what you were explaining on the second case study. Yeah, so you mentioned that the filling station was later on demolished, but I don't know if you mentioned it or I didn't hear it. I wanted to understand if the filling station was indeed causing pollution to the water.
No, it wasn't causing pollution. Remember, when you are determining the impacts, you say the likely impacts. Okay, sometimes impacts can be, they cannot happen as of now, but in the long term, anything can happen. For example, you know, tanks due to corrosion, okay, due to corrosion, they can burst or they can have a leakage after some time, and that leakage can contribute to those problems. Even the pipes can have leakages, okay? So when they get in contact with the oil coming from the filling station, those things can happen, okay? So it was a way of avoiding future problems which were likely to happen. It doesn't mean that when they are demolishing this, such thing had happened. No, it had not happened.
Okay, so the basis was because the previous environmental assessment practitioners had said in future there's a likelihood of this problem.
Yes.
Oh, okay, no, thank you.
Thanks a lot for your question. Another question or comments, or if you have other case studies which you can also share with us from your own perspectives. Yes, Kudai.
Hello, Miriam.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to ask, considering the last example that you gave about the filling station, what would you advise experts to do in the event there is no political will for similar projects, where the situation is you have identified maybe, let's say, there are species that will go extinct if that project persists, but government, maybe because it's a national project, insists that it needs to proceed. How do you propose that we can be able to handle such a project? Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, I forgot to unmute. Yeah, you say that the government insists that the project has to continue to take place. In that place, remember, when you are carrying out an EIA, okay, you have a proposed site and you also have alternative sites, okay? So in that case, you need to at least advise the government that if you still want this to take place, then move on to an alternative site where you are not going to have these impacts, because most of the times the impacts, some can be similar, but others can vary according to site. Just like the example which I gave you earlier on of the dam, okay? That one position, it was going to lead to extinction of a certain species, but the other alternatives, that problem was not going to happen. That's why they had to go for an alternative site. I don't know if I've answered your question. Kudzai.
Yes,
Good.
yes, I can hear you.
Yes, have I
can hear
answered your
you.
question? Yes, I can hear you. So have I
Hello?
answered your question?
Yes.
Hello. Yes, have I
Yeah,
answered your
I
question?
think the issue of having alternative sites. Yes, yes, yes. I'm saying the issue of alternative sites. I think that can be possible, but we've got problems whereby this can be in a case like maybe a dam where you can have alternative sites, but in the case of mining now, or even for the filling station that you gave, yes, you can have alternative sites. But for mining now, let's look at cases of mining. That's the only site where you're getting maybe your samples with a high grade ore and whatever. So moving to an alternative site will have maybe far-reaching implications. So those are some of the things now that you then need, at least maybe look at issues of alternative ways of doing things, but moving the sites it may not be possible. So those are some of the issues that we can face as well.
Yeah, like in the case of mining, yes, it can be very challenging. That's why I was saying that there was need for political will. Okay, so if the government sees the need of the importance or recognizes or acknowledges the need of protecting the environment, they can leave the monetary part. If they do a cost benefit analysis and they see that it is much wiser to conserve the environment and avoid mining, okay? In that context, government has to go for that, okay? That's why the political will still comes in there. I know sometimes much weight is given on the monetary part, that if we are going to do the mining, we are going to have more money, whatever. But when, just because maybe it's not easy to put a cost to the environmental benefits which we get through some ecosystem services, yeah?
Yes, I think that's true. It's an element of political will.
Yes, yeah, so that is much to do with the political will there. And it's a common problem in many countries. I know in South Africa you do a lot of mining, but that problem is found in many countries. So I get your concern, really. Okay, can I move to another person, Mucha?
Hello, Miriam. Thank you for your presentation. So I just wanted to ask, I'm not an environment expert, but I just wanted to ask something. So I've noticed that sometimes you get buildings, let's just say maybe buildings erected in areas where they're not very suitable, like there's maybe on wetlands, for example. Then the environmental experts comes in, maybe the environmental management agencies, they come in and they start to make noise. Why were these buildings built in such an area? So after that, then there'll be talk of regularization of the buildings. What does it entail? Does it mean, I'm not sure, because the building is not going to be moved, but there's talk of regularization. What does it entail really?
It's a big problem, because even now in this case, I'm going to talk like a fiscal planner. In fiscal planning, you know where to place what. Okay, so just like what you say, that in this case we have a wetland. A wetland is not appropriate for building construction. Okay, these are some things which have to be avoided. But the problem in most cases is that we take time to act. Okay, that's why we have a lot of illegal structures, okay, in many cities, okay, because we take time to act, and also because of the bureaucratic measures or standards which are followed for people to access land for construction. For example, if you go to many African countries, you find that most of the people who construct in these wetlands are the poor. Okay, why you find many people going to these squatter settlements or to squat in these settlements? Because they cannot afford, okay, land to construct their homes, okay, according to their pocket. Why? Because the costs are very high. So if our governments are able to factor in or to consider the poor in their policies or housing policies, etc., this has to be reduced in the long run. Okay, that's what I can say. Okay. When we apply this to EIA, I know that you went through this with Trudy. Before the constructed this, for example, in EIA, when we are doing EIA, there are thresholds which have to be followed in each country according to registration. So if the people are conversant with the EIA standards, okay, that these areas are not allowed for construction, they cannot go to such places. But in many cases, many people are not conversant. Even some people who are working in government, they may not be conversant with what EIA is all about and what has to be done. So that can also contribute. Lack of awareness or lack of knowledge can also contribute. We can have policies, but the policies can be there on the shelf, but people may not know the contents of the policies or the guidelines, the building standards, whatever. They may not be conversant, but if they are conversant, some of these issues can be avoided. The other issue, I will still come back to political will. I remember, I'll give an example of what happened in our country when there was change of government from one party system to democracy. People misunderstood their freedom or their human rights. Okay, that thing, the example which you are sharing here, it happened in our cities. People rushed to areas which were originally not meant to be residential areas, like the wetlands, etc. They went there to construct their houses, and when the city authorities came to demolish, okay, the ruling government was against that. Okay, so people, just because they were trying to protect their positions or their jobs, then they stopped. Yeah, they stopped and they ended up legalizing that, but that was wrong. So on the other hand, politics also play a role. So there's so many issues. They have talked about the policy issues, okay, that if they're not pro-poor, that can contribute to that. Two, lack of knowledge amongst the technical people can also contribute to that. And also political will also contributes to that. I don't know if I've answered your question, Mocha.
Yes, you have. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, thank you. James?
Thank you, Madam. Once again, thank you, Miriam.
You're welcome.
I wanted to find out for example, in Malawi, to what scale EIA is going to be, what scale of the project is the EIA going to be recommended? Because we see a lot of, I'm based in Zozo. We see a lot of developments taking place, occupying larger spaces, affecting the environment. But you find that those doing these projects are individuals, and these individuals, because of the numbers, you find that a larger space is going to be affected. but we don't see maybe government coming in to say, demanding that maybe EIA reports should be maybe seen for those developments which are taking place, because maybe the scale at which these things are happening at individual scales. So I don't know what is the regulation saying on that.
Okay. As I say that in each country there's registration. So similarly in Malawi, we do have registration governing to that. We have an Environmental Management Act that regulates that EIA has to take place, according to what the nation talks about. And in line with the Environmental Management Act, we have the environmental, with the National Environmental Guidelines, okay, which stipulates, okay, which projects, okay, and to what extent they have to undergo EIA and which ones should not undergo EIA, okay? So they have thresholds that, for example, if you are constructing maybe for so much land, on so much land, or where you have endangered species, or you do A, B, C, and D, EIA is mandatory. Or if it has cumulative effects, EIA is mandatory, all those things, okay? So sometimes it could be that if there's an individual constructing somewhere else, if the government is deciding, it could be that it is below, okay, what the registration is requiring for an EIA to take place. But in many cases, okay, if one wants to construct any infrastructure, okay, even if it's an individual, okay, has to submit a proposed project, okay, to Environmental Affairs Department. And this is the office which will determine through screening criteria whether that place or that project requires an EIA or not. Just like if you buy, if you want to buy land, okay, if you're doing it legally, okay, and you want to construct a house, you don't just have to start constructing a house, okay? You submit your plan, okay, to the Fiscal Planning Department or Lands or City Department, okay? These are the people now who are going to determine whether your plan is appropriate for the place where you want to construct it or not, okay? And if it has to be constructed, then if there are some measures which have to be taken into consideration, they'll advise you, okay? And also, these people are the ones, if you didn't go through if you feel that, no, this doesn't need to go to the Environmental Affairs Department, if you are well conversant with the EIA guidelines, and then you note that, no, my project doesn't need this, if you submit the plan, those people can also determine, okay, that, you know, your project needs to go through EIA. So they will recommend that you submit your proposal to the EIA department. But sometimes, okay, maybe because of limited capacity in our government offices, sometimes this can be overlooked, okay? But once the technical arm of the government discover that there's this problem, okay, they can go, okay, and stop development or recommend what has to be done to the project with the project owner. I've seen examples of that happening in Lilongwe for the past year, okay? So that can also happen in Nzuzu as well. Okay, thanks a lot. I don't know if I've answered your question, James.
Yes, you did, thank you.
Okay, Joseph.
Okay, thank you, Miriam, for that good presentation. Mine is not a question, but it's a contribution. Yeah, you know, it's very important for governments, I think, to take recommendations in the EIA. Here in Zambia, we faced one problem. There was a forest reserve, and which needed to be prevented from encroachments. And the government, because of the political will, the government went ahead and gave plots in the forest reserve. And this forest reserve is also a recharge area for both groundwater and surface water. And eventually what happened, the stream, after that area was built up, the stream dried up. And as I'm speaking now, that stream is not a perennial river. So yeah, I think that's my contribution.
Yeah, thanks a lot for your contribution. It's a nice one. Yeah, so you can see that in this context, if government had followed what the EIA report, okay, had recommended, this problem could have been avoided. Okay, and that problem has cascading effects as well. So now that the perennial river is no longer there, it means that all the benefits which are accruing from the perennial river can no longer be enjoyed by even the current generation, even if we don't even consider the future generation. So EIA is very important. This just signifies the importance of EIA in decision making. Yeah, Mucha, you have another question or comment? Or this was just a previous hand?
Sorry, it's an old hand.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so if we don't have another question or comments, I think this is what I prepared to share with you, and thanks a lot for your comments. Some they have been eye-opening. Okay, we've learned a lot. I'm available anytime. If you go through the notes, and if you have any other challenges, if Trude is not around, you can also contact me. Okay, I think my details should be there, so you can contact me. We can have a brief chat and highlight some of the challenges or address some of the challenges which you are facing with our content. Okay, thanks a lot. Have a nice day. We'll meet again when we start looking at environmental flows next week. Tomorrow you'll be with Dr. Evers Matunga, who is going to take you through strategic environmental assessment, which is done at higher level before you consider EIA at project level. Okay, thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Miriam.
Bye-bye.
Bye.